Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. We are back. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by the commissioner's pick for the podcast All-Stars. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, yes. Yeah, he gave me a call. I'm actually his first alternate. I think you made it, and then maybe Jason Davis made it, and then I came in third, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an honour, but it also means that the fans didn't select you and the coach didn't select you.
Yeah, it's a little rough. But, I'll take what I can get. It's fine. It just means that I don't have to play yet another game in 100-degree temperatures, so that's fine with me.
So on today's show, we'll be talking, obviously we'll talk a little bit the MLS All-Star Game. We'll maybe have a go at fixing it, he said, with air quotes. We'll talk Sam Allardyce, New England boss. We haven't had time to talk about Sam Allardyce. We'll maybe talk a little Wolves takeover. And we'll do some TSS scouting reports.
For those who don't know what you're talking about with that takeover, that sounded very strange and possibly alarming.
The world has been overtaken by Wolves. Everybody lock your doors. Go to high ground.
That should do it, right?
Before we get into it, Taylor, we've got to say, we've been away for, I want to say, nearly 2 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. It's the longest break, I think, in Total Soccer Show history. It was post-Copas,
really?
post-Euro, I think.
Wow,
so.
That's surprising.
Yeah, we normally kept it going, but there's a good reason.
I'm going to say it was the longest break for you. For me, that was that 2-year break. But yes.
I wasn't going to explicitly say that.
I see what you mean.
The reason we needed a break is to, recharge our batteries after the Copa and the Euros, because there's a long haul ahead of us, because we have committed to 5 Total Soccer shows per week.
Yeah, we have.
And we're excited about it.
Yeah, we are.
We already did the very short episode saying thank you to everybody who has subscribed and supported us and made it possible. But this is it. 5 days a week begins now on a Friday. Aren't we crafty?
It's like when schools, when your first day of school is a Thursday.
Yeah.
Like they just want to kind of ease you into it, and then you get a little bit of a break before you have to start full speed.
So let's start full speed.
Right.
We'll start actually with sort of catching up on some of the big news that we've missed in the last couple of weeks. The big one that I followed from afar.
You mean the Daryl Grove related news? Is that what we're doing?
It's mostly the Daryl Grove related news. Is we'll talk Wolves takeover later.
Okay.
Again, lock your doors. Sam Allardyce has been appointed the new England coach following England's disaster at Euro 2016.
Yes. And I want to say first off, the thing that has been a continuous distraction for me in all of this is that all of the headlines now, since he's been named England manager, they all begin with the new England manager, but they drop the. So every time I'm like, wait, he's managing the revolution now? Like New England manager Sam Allardyce? That's weird.
If you're a Revs fan right now, is it really hard to search for New England Revs news, right?
Well, just New England, yeah. I think you got to search more than that.
If you want to buy a Revs jersey, are you like, New England jersey? And you get the white jersey that looks strikingly similar to the US jersey.
Yeah, if maybe you wanted to see if there were any rumors linking New England with Lloyd Sam. So, New England plus Sam. I think it becomes an issue. But yes. So aside from that was the big news. You were gone. But I think we both maybe saw this coming. I don't think...
Yeah, we're not clairvoyant. I mean, it was rumoured. It was heavily rumoured.
Yeah, but more so that I don't think it was ever going to be Steve Bruce. I really don't think it was ever going to be Jurgen Klinsmann, even though there were rumours.
There was that suggestion that maybe that was Klinsmann's people suggesting that to get him a bit more leverage with US soccer.
Yeah, so it sounds like...
He wasn't interviewed. I know that, because if he'd been interviewed, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, so it sounds like it was basically Sam Allardyce was the front runner and then stayed the front runner.
Yeah. Well, I also did read that there weren't conversations with Arsene Wenger.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But Wenger obviously wasn't interested. And there's kind of a long history of the big-time Premier League managers have been contacted about the England job. I think several times. Like Alex Ferguson, I know, was asked, and he basically said, I'm Scottish, go away.
Yep. Mourinho before Capello.
Yeah, Mourinho was in there, and I think basically the story I remember is that his wife persuaded him that you're too young and too lively and too obsessive to be an international coach because there aren't enough games.
Actually, I think now that I think about it, it was Mourinho before Capello and also Mourinho after Capello.
Yeah,
I think both times.
He's kind of an obvious choice in many ways.
Yeah.
And then recently, it seems Arsene Wenger was approached and he was like, "Sorry, I got this Arsenal thing that I'm still working on."
And then David Moyes?
We'll talk more Arsenal later.
That didn't happen?
David Moyes was not approached. So it's Big Sam.
It is.
And we've talked a little off air without getting into too much detail. We save our best stuff for the recording. I'm very much in favour of it. You seem more mixed. So I feel like maybe we need to interrogate each other and see who's right.
I think
a winner will be decided.
I think the reason why I'm coming from it from a mixed emotion standpoint begins with it sort of not to start off controversially, it sort of reminds me of the current U.S. election, where with both candidates, I think both people are kind of like, really? Like, that's what we got here? Like neither candidate is really particularly that, like, yes, this is the person I want to get behind. You don't have that clear figure. And so it becomes like, wow, like Sam Allardyce and Steve Bruce, those are the big England managers? That's not great. That's not great at all. So I think that kind of reduced my expectations a little bit, but also made me less excited about the appointment overall.
I sort of feel the same way, except that I really and genuinely think Sam Allardyce is the best English manager. Therefore, it's really obvious that he should be the England manager.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely excited because I've always thought that at a bigger club, he would have a more impressive resume. He'd be a more exciting coach. I feel like he's kind of underrated in many ways, and I think this is Allardyce's big chance to prove it.
Yeah, but can't you flip that around and say the other take on that is that he's never been given that opportunity because maybe people don't think he deserves that opportunity? Because you could say, the biggest opportunity he's gotten was maybe Newcastle.
Yeah. And
that did not go very well.
It didn't go. I mean, it got worse after he left. Put it that way. I feel like he was undervalued at the time.
This is true. This is true.
And so the thing I'm really excited about is all the stuff about Allardyce's attention to detail, the way that his teams always have great set pieces, his attention to stats and like video analysis and all that sort of stuff. I kind of think all the stuff that he used to make a team like, say, Bolton really, really super competitive, way above where they should be, like in terms of maybe size of the team. Bolton fans will not be happy to hear that, but since he left, they've gone down, down, down.
Yeah.
All that attention to detail and those getting the extra percentage on the edges, that type of stuff, applying that to the England team is what could lead to a successful England team, as opposed to rolling out the players and being like Roy Hodgson did at the Euros. He was basically, we've got great players, we'll possess the ball against Slovakia and we'll slowly break them down.
Here's my but. I feel like I've had a couple buts so far. But with that Bolton team, wasn't he able to sign some pretty big names and bring in some pretty big talent to keep that team afloat and keep that team going?
Yeah, but he got them to the Premier League without JJ Okocha, right? And then he slowly added pieces in. And again, the thing that really impressed me is he added, JJ Okocha, Nicholas Anelka, Yuri Djurkaeff, Fernando Hierro, all those guys when it suited him and got it working.
Yeah, and he got good things out of Anelka. It's worth remembering. And
his reputation, Anelka's reputation was really in the toilet almost at that point.
I can't remember if it was Bolton, Fenerbahce, Chelsea, or if it was Fenerbahce, Bolton, Chelsea.
There was a brief loan move to Liverpool in there as well that didn't work out.
Remember that? So I think you could definitely take it that way and say that you're right that he is good at getting, I mean, that's kind of the stereotypical line, right? Like he's good at getting lower table teams up a division and then keeping teams, like middling teams, in that top division, and maybe that's what England are. Right?
All those things apply to England right now.
Yeah. And I think, so then I've seen what has kind of turned it around for me is, number one, kind of the way he is being perceived by the media, because it is still those kind of negative long ball moments, for sure.
I listened to some BBC Radio 606 phone and stuff on 5 Live, and there are so many people so unhappy about this.
Yeah. But then, there's a great Telegraph article where they're kind of, it was like why people should be like excited about Big Sam, but then it was nothing really relating to soccer. It was just all little intangible moments. One of which is, do you know his preferred style of dress for games?
No.
It's suit with a shirt but no tie.
Yes.
Like it tends to be the unbuttoned.
That was his first England press conference. He came out no tie.
No,
shirt
he showed up with a tie for the unveiling when he took the England scarf photo. Tie was off, so he took the tie off between when he first showed up and when he took the promotional photos,
and when they did the press conference, which is obviously a very visible moment.
So he basically held onto that tie just as long as he could, and there was no, this isn't for me. And I think the point of the Telegraph article was that speaks to who he is he's going to be who he is. He's going to do what he wants to do, and he has the confidence to do it. And that's maybe what England need, is a person who is charming and affable, but has a temper and can be strict. And through it all, is just kind of I'm going to do what I do. Not really worried about you. I'm going to bring in my people and make things work.
That's one of the things that also gets me excited, is kind of his gruff but charming personality. He's not gruff in that players then hate him, but he's just gruff in that he's not too respectful of, say, the structures of the FA. And one example I think of is, for example, he's brought in his own coaching staff, right? Sammy Lee, who was with him all that time at Bolton, and I think replaced him, but then didn't do so well.
I believe that's correct.
He's brought him in. He hasn't been sort of had his arm twisted into okay, well, we think the next England manager is going to be, Alex Neil, so therefore he should be your assistant coach. It's been more like, no, I know who my coaching staff is. If you want to make this succeed, surround me with the people I want to be surrounded by.
Yeah, and you could maybe make an argument that England did so poorly at the Euros that there wasn't anybody there that they said needs to stick around. Maybe you can make that argument, but I agree with you though that it is
would have been
kind
Gareth Southgate. That's who it would have been, the under 21 coach. They maybe would have given him to big time. Yeah.
So maybe it is an element of they do trust him fully. Maybe he interviewed very well. Maybe they have faith in him, and so they're just saying do what you want to do, bring in who you want to bring in.
Yeah.
We're not going to meddle for now. We'll see how long that lasts.
Well, this is the exciting thing to me is if this is successful, then it establishes a precedent where a manager in the Premier League who's managed mid-table or lower or higher teams and had some success without winning trophies and without going to the Champions League, if that success can then be proven by Big Sam being successful to be a suitable resume to get you the England job, it sort of changes everything in terms of the FA's options going forward. There'll be no more we don't have anyone, we're going to have to bring in Fabio Capello, who barely speaks English and has never managed in the Premier League. You know what I mean? It would open the door to a lot more coaches.
Well, theoretically, except that you don't really have that many other England managers, period. I mean, the three big candidates were Sam Allardyce, Steve Bruce, and also I'm forgetting who manages Bournemouth?
Bournemouth manager is Eddie Howe, which is who I meant earlier when I said Alex Neil, who is Scottish.
Okay. Yeah.
So, Eddie Howe is the Bournemouth manager, yeah.
Right. So you've got those three who are the candidates because those are the three top-tier English managers, if that's what you want to go with. But
Steve Bruce spent last season in the Championship.
And has now
and
left
the previous season getting relegated.
Right, and then they got promoted, but then he's left Hull City. So really at this point, with Sam Allardyce leaving, you only have 3 English managers in the Premier League. And that's it. And so I think it's also incumbent upon the Premier League to kind of incentivize...
Third one is Alan Pardew?
Yes, Sean Dyche, Eddie Howe, Alan Pardew. Ooh. That's it. Yeah, so it's not great. So, I mean, that's definitely an issue that I think maybe is out of the hands of the FA.
Maybe success in the Championship qualifies you for the England job?
Yeah, who knows? It could. But I also wanted to ask you, and I'm sure you have more to say, but one thing I kind of saw written a few different times was about Graham Taylor. And about how Sam Allardyce being appointed could be Graham Taylor all over again. Now, forgive me, I know some things about the soccer, but I don't really know what they're referring to because I guess I don't know much about England managers before Sven.
Okay, we're going to work backwards then. Do you remember the 1994 World Cup that was held in the USA?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember how England did there?
Not well.
They did not qualify.
There it is.
England
that would be
did
why.
Not qualify.
So it was Lineker having an incident with himself was 90, right? Was it Italian 90?
Yes.
And I sometimes think it was 94 because it was so hot.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay, so 1990 obviously a high point for English football, right? We get to the semi-final of the World Cup. Bobby Robson, future Sir Bobby Robson, is in charge. He leaves after the tournament to manage, I think, PSV, right? His replacement is up-and-coming young manager Graham Taylor, who has just got Aston Villa promoted from the old second division to the old first division, which is the Premier League. And then I think he finished second in his first or second season behind Liverpool. So everyone's like, oh, this really clever young manager who does all these clever things. Let's make him the England coach. And it just all went wrong. Graham Taylor as England coach tried to do a lot of he did a lot of long ball type tactics with Watford and then Villa. He tried to make England more of a club type system. He had people playing out of position before that was really a thing that people did. England went to Euro 92 and performed horribly. He subbed Gary Lineker out in Gary Lineker's last game when England needed a goal to progress in the tournament. Then we failed to qualify for the 1994 World Cup. So because he was the manager of a smaller team and not high profile, and then it all went badly, I think that's what people are thinking it's going to be like with Sam Allardyce.
Okay.
Worst case scenario.
Now, here's my other question for you. Would you consider Sam Allardyce to be a likable coach?
I would.
I don't even mean tactics-wise or anything like that. I just mean, do you think he's, from
affable?
a media standpoint? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And when is the last time England had, a likable manager? Because you could maybe say Roy Hodgson, but I would say a lot of people don't like him, and a lot of people thought he was kind of austere and severe.
Yeah, well, he's not. I think maybe the word you're looking for is entertaining.
Yeah.
In a press conference.
Yeah,
right?
that could be.
So, yeah, Fabio Capello was not entertaining in a press conference. He basically pretended his English was worse than it was.
Yeah.
So that that's an actual thing, right? He didn't have to answer questions.
Well,
Steve McLaren is kind of not a very excited. I mean, I like him as a person. I don't know him, but, I imagine he's a nice guy, but he's kind of dour.
Yeah.
Sven was very icy in his own way. And, kind of crafty in that he was always looking for a better paying job.
Yep.
So before that was probably Kevin Keegan,
Yeah.
who was kind of charming in a press conference.
Right.
Sam Allardyce, here's an example of Sam Allardyce. When he was asked, why weren't you good enough for the job when you interviewed for it in 2006, which is when McLaren got it, but you are good enough now? Allardyce's answer was, I was good enough in 2006.
I mean, it's a good answer. Yeah.
And for the record, I find him likeable because he's from Dudley, which is almost literally where I'm from, give or take like 4 miles.
Yeah,
You know what I
how
mean?
far away? How far
I
away
actually
would
don't
you
know
say?
the mileage, but it is not far. You know what I mean? Like
So you got the local loyalty, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And well, just like his sense of humour is kind of the sense of humour I grew up with and I'm used to and kind of like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. So I mean, I guess all that's
But
positive.
that's something to be excited about. The fact that press conferences with Sam Allardyce are going to be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to say things like out-tacticked.
That's my favorite one ever. I knew it was going to come up at some point.
Could you
that's the
recount
best
it maybe
thing.
for listeners who don't know?
Oh, I think it was just that Mourinho got very annoyed with Sam Allardyce's West Ham, I believe it was at the time, and said like, oh, they parked the bus and they're not playing good soccer the way we are. And Allardyce's response was like, oh, he's mad because he got out-tacticked. I out-tacticked Jose. Out-tacticked with a past tense is beautiful.
Wonderful.
Yes, absolutely wonderful.
Can we talk about this? Can we talk about the perception of Sam Allardyce as a long ball manager? Because that's also that links in with the Graham Taylor thing, because that was the criticism of him, of his teams. I have this feeling that when people say long ball, they think of literally an aimless long ball out of the back, like a big centre back just whacking a ball forward and hoping that someone tall gets to it.
Yeah.
My take on it is that Allardyce is more about just whatever's effective, right? You get systems in place that are effective. And for example, when he was Bolton manager, one of the best things he had was big Kevin Davies. Remember Kevin Davies, centre forward, knocking it down for Kevin Nolan to be running on from attacking midfield, and then he connects at the top of the box and shoots and scores. And it was more like, to me, I see that as we found a thing that worked. Let's keep doing that thing, as opposed to a long ball, which is kind of hopeless.
Yeah, and I think
They're almost entirely different things. One is aimless, and one is a thing that we know works. That's a plan. We know what we're doing. Let's do more of that.
And if you think about his reputation, he's a manager who keeps you up. If you're afraid of getting relegated, he's a guy who's going to find a way to win, and that's because he is practical, and he's going to do.
Practical's the word,
right? And I mean, he said himself in the introductory press conference, they're like, "What are you not going to miss about the Premier League?" And he said, "I think it was January and February." He was just like, "There's so many fixtures, there's so many things you have to worry about that it makes it really difficult to manage." And so, his teams play a higher percentage of long balls than they do sideways passes or backwards passes.
But look at sideways passes, backwards passes. That's how England tried to break down Slovakia in that final group game. Didn't do it. 0-0, finished second in the group. Round of 16, tried to do it to break down Iceland. Couldn't do it. Lost 2-1 to Iceland.
But I think, but what I'm getting at, though, is that if you look at Sunderland, they don't need him to come in and provide this revolutionary blueprint where we're going to try to change the way we play, and this guy's going to become an outside back when before he was a big target man.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're going to play very simple 4-4-2, get the job done, everybody focus on your defensive responsibilities. That's what he has to do at club level because that's where he's managing. With the England national team, now he's got months to prepare. He's going to surround himself, as we talked about, with people that he trusts who know things that he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think it gives him the time to do the things that maybe he would have liked to do at clubs that he did do at clubs like Bolton, like we talked about, like Blackburn, which I think is another one that people forget about.
Yeah.
That
He kept them up as well.
Yeah, ended poorly because of Venky's, not so much because of anything he did. And so I think he has that ability to play better soccer than I think people are branding him with.
And I think the key thing you said there is the preparation. The biggest story I can think of recently is his first game was going to be a friendly against probably Croatia at Wembley, right? He sort of had that cancelled. The rumour is it was his decision to cancel it, right? Or at least to not confirm it. Instead, his first game will be September 4th, away to, ironically, Slovakia, in a World Cup qualifier.
Right.
And the justification for not having a friendly is so that instead of having to worry about that friendly, he can get the players in and have as much time as possible to practice and prepare.
Right.
And I genuinely see the logic in that, because you would think you're more prepared if you've played a game, but actually you're more prepared if you've spent all your time preparing for one opponent.
Well, and that's it's a thing to keep in mind when looking at Sam Allardyce as England manager, is maybe wait and see how it goes before you cast judgment, because I did see a couple different papers making fun of that friendly that might have been against Croatia, because it was it's Sam just thinking Croatia, Slovakia, Slovenia, they're all the same, so we can just play one team and it'll do the same thing. And then when he cancels it, and wasn't the one who scheduled it in the first place, it kind of changes the way you see it. And now it's not just like, oh, we're playing somebody similar to get ourselves ready. It's like, no, we're not playing that game so that we can be ready. And it does kind of, again, it shapes the way you see him a little bit, or at least shapes the way I see him.
Do you think I'm being over-optimistic in thinking...
Yes.
Like cancelling a friendly and having more practice is like a sign of this. The idea I see of England being more prepared for each game. Like I imagine a Sam Allardyce team would not fall for an Iceland long throw because they'd have spotted that. The video would have been shown, stuff would have been worked on. There would have been a defensive scheme to get rid of that, and there would have been a different like set piece design play defensive scheme at the other end that Harry Kane would not be taking but would possibly be on the end of instead.
Yes, is my answer to that.
Yeah.
We would. I think the initial question was, am I being overly optimistic? Yes. But I think that's what you have to be with England because...
I mean, I have done for the last...
I mean, you've kind of ran the gamut here. You've had like the Sven-Goran Eriksson, you've had Roy Hodgson, you've had Fabio Capello, you've had all these different managers, you've had Steve McLaren, as you mentioned. So I think maybe, try something, I would say, relatively different in the form of Sam Allardyce. And if you're trying something different, you may as well be optimistic about it.
And can I get you to make the commitment that game, September 4th, away to Slovakia, we will do some deep TSS coverage?
Sure, except that you know the way this works, and what's going to happen is there's going to be 4
US
other
game.
huge games that day.
But no, with our new 5-day-a-week Total Soccer show, we theoretically have time to watch the US game, review the US game deeply. It'll be the World Cup qualifier. We can also do the same for England. Okay.
That is Sunday, September 4th, I believe. I'm betting now that September 3rd is a home Richmond Kickers game. Then there's going to be like a U.S. game and one more big game that we both want to watch, and it's going to suddenly be a crowded fixture list. But we'll be able to navigate it.
So that's a soft yes.
Yes, it's a soft yes.
Which is the same as your support for Sam Allardyce.
Yeah.
Soft yes.
Yes, exactly.
So while we're doing Daryl news, or news that's important to Daryl that we've missed recently, we've got to talk about that Wolves takeover. Everybody relax. Unlock your windows. America has not been overtaken by Los Lobos. There are not wolves everywhere.
Or Kanye West.
But instead, Wolves, who were up for sale, my team in the Championship, were up for sale for about a year, I think, have been bought by a Chinese investment group named Fosun. And the new sort of, I don't think he's been described as the chairman, but the new sort of guy in charge at Wolves is a Chinese businessman known as Jeff Shi.
And then who is actually in charge of Wolves?
Well, there's actually... Do I have his name? Guo Guangchang is the actual owner of the Fosun investment group.
Still not who I'm talking about. George Mendes. Let's get to him.
Well, yeah, I mean, so... Okay, yeah, let's get to this.
Yeah.
A lot of people at Wolves, fans, are very excited about the fact that we've been taken over by this, rich investment group firm. But I'm kind of concerned about this link with George Mendes, the Portuguese super agent. He's Ronaldo's agent. He's linked with so many big, great players. I can't even imagine how rich he is from all the percentages he's taken.
I think he's the one that Ronaldo bought an island for his birthday, if that gives you any insight into how rich he is.
It does, believe it or not.
Yep.
It does. And you would think it would be exciting to be linked with this super agent. But since this Chinese firm's taken over and George Mendes has been linked, all the Wolves signings and rumours have been about... not quite top tier Portuguese players. It's almost like Wolves suddenly have access to George Mendes' C-list, and I'm not excited about that.
Yeah.
I do not find it encouraging that suddenly, it's not a good way to build a team. Basically, just who's George Mendes got that no one else wants?
Right, because the way you could definitely market this is we've bought this club, we're providing an influx of money, we've got connections to this super agent who represents forgive me because these aren't the best current players to go with, but like Nani and Ronaldo and Falcao in their prime. Yeah. And so it becomes like, wow, we've got this connection now. And then you forget that George Mendes is also the one who sold Bebe to Manchester United for £7.5 million. So then it's like, well, or is he doing that with them where there's money to be made, so he's just selling whomever he can find?
Well, the guys that have gone on loan so far are Helder Costa, who is sort of a reserve Benfica winger, and I think Pele as well, who's not the Pele. He's a reserve Benfica defensive midfielder.
Or Graziano Pele.
Yeah. Not him, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's in China, I do believe.
Oh, yes, he is. I forgot about that move.
Yep.
That's kind of disappointing.
Yes. So he's gone one way, and then China have come the other to purchase your club. So are you down on this takeover then? Are you not so thrilled?
I am. Because, I think people think of it as like maybe the Man City takeover, where suddenly there's just billions of pounds to spend, and we're going to buy the very best players that money can get hold of. But that's not really what's happened. It's not as if the owners have come in and said, we are going to spend 500 million in the next 2 years and make Wolves into into a super team. It's more like we've brought Wolves. It's kind of a Chinese PR move, which really is what all these Chinese investment firms buying English teams seems to be about Chinese public relations.
Yeah,
right?
Except that I would say that you could take that the opposite direction and say that if it were truly a Chinese PR move, then they would say, we're going to win the Champions League in the next 10 years. That's our goal. That's what they always do. If you look at the other teams that have been taken over by large companies with lots of money, you look at Malaga and Monaco would be my two prime examples where they're going to compete. They're going to spend all this money. They're going to splash the cash. And maybe they do it a little bit, and then they fall off, and then you're in a worse situation you were than when they took over.
Were they bought by Chinese businesses?
No, I forget.
Okay.
I mean, Monaco obviously are owned by a Russian billionaire. I forget who owns Malaga. I think it might be a Middle Eastern company. I could be totally wrong on that one. But I feel like it's almost better that they're not just coming in and being like, we're going to buy huge players, we're going to make everything different, that they're maybe trying to find young, potentially very exciting players to build on to get out of the championship. Because you're also not going to be able, if you're spending a lot of money to bring a player to the championship, it's going to be somebody who doesn't deserve that much money, is my guess.
Well, the one rumour of a big name player is Anderson Talisca, who is like an exciting Brazilian who plays for Benfica, and apparently Liverpool are linked with him, and he's like £25 million or euros.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like that's not realistic, and that maybe that is just one of those PR move type things.
Yeah.
But again, all Portuguese-related players. Like it's good timing that Portugal just won the Euros, so it's kind of Portugal's in right now. You know what I mean? But if you were really looking at Wolves and saying, what's the best way we can build this team without spending too much money? It can't be just pure coincidence. It just happens that all the players that we need happen to be Portuguese and happen to be represented by Jorge Mendes. So I think the thing I'm disappointed about is just how much that's not even a secret anymore. That agents dictate which players clubs buy.
One thing I think you're about to have to get used to, which is something that as a Manchester United fan I've gotten very used to in the past 3 years, be prepared to be used as leverage in every negotiation. So I would say that's why you're probably linked with him, is because now you have the money to be able to afford players like that. So he can always use that. He being Mendes can say, well, this championship club are willing to fork that money over if you're not, Liverpool, and you're a Premier League club, so maybe you should. Yeah. So I feel like it's going to be Wolves linked with a lot of names, and maybe not a lot of them happening. Although I continue to try to link them with Pazdan for you.
Yes. Well, here's a problem. So we saw Michael Pazdan play for Poland at Euro 2016. He's exactly my kind of player, and he's exactly the player I thought Wolves could and should go after. I saw he was available for something like £2.5 million was the rumour, is what he would cost.
Really?
Right?
That is not a lot of money.
He's at Legia Warsaw in Poland. So the first thing I did after all this Jorge Mendes stuff was see if, by some bizarre chance, Michael Pazdan was represented by Jorge Mendes. He was not.
No dice.
He's represented by Pro Sports, which is a Polish agency, and they're his biggest client.
But I really do.
He's their biggest client.
So maybe that's probably not going to happen then, that he'll be linked with Jorge Mendes.
Well, it makes it less likely, right? Yeah.
But I think we can make it likely, Daryl Grove. Because there was the incident a few years ago when Reddit basically created a rumor to see if other people would start reporting it, and they did.
You want to pass down to Wolves rumor?
Yes. I think it was Zlatan from PSG to Monaco, because they had to find something that would be big enough to attract attention but would never actually happen, so there would be no reason for anyone else to report on it. And then people did start to pick it up. So I want this to happen. Pass down to Wolves. Not quite as sexy maybe as Zlatan to Monaco, but still, we can make it work.
Maybe it'll be like the Mazal Bugdov story all over again.
I don't know that story.
Oh, this is the fake player that an Irish writer kind of invented. I can't remember what league they said he was in, maybe Kazakhstan. They started doing fake blog posts about how this is one of the most promising young players in the world. And he started appearing on, the Times would publish top 50 up-and-coming youngsters in the world. He would appear in there.
Should we do that with the scouting network? Should we just throw in a fake player just to see if all of our scouts are paying attention?
We can have a look.
Yeah.
If listeners are interested in the Mazal Bugdov story, I may be pronouncing that wrong. It's been a while since I read it. Brian Phillips, the Brian Phillips, who wrote for Grantland and now writes for MTV, he wrote a whole sort of here's what happened thing for, I think, Slate at the time. It's a great read. I'll put it in the show notes.
Beautiful.
For people to read.
So we're going to say you're feeling optimistic about England under Big Sam, somewhat optimistic to have a new owner at your club?
I feel a little bit dirty.
Really?
All the Jorge Mendes stuff, yeah. And then a little bit worried as well. The championship season starts August 6th. We are recording this on July 29th.
Yeah.
That's not been a good pre-season.
Not so much.
And then there's all these great young Wolves players, like Niall Ennis scored in pre-season, who I feel like are going to get elbowed out of the way by C-list Jorge Mendes Portuguese players.
But if you get promoted to the Premier League, do you
then
care?
It'll be the best thing ever.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
So we'll revisit this when that happens.
We shall. We shall indeed.
One more thing at the start of today's show, Taylor.
The start of today's show, which I assume we're now like 35 minutes in.
I feel like we're just getting into it. 30 exactly. The MLS All-Star Game happened last night, in which the MLS All-Stars lost 2-1 to Arsenal. The winning goal coming from Chuba Akpom of the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, scouted by Ryan Hand.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's basically George Mendez's like B/C list clients, and this was maybe Arsenal's B/C list team coming out and playing against the MLS All-Stars.
Well, it's all the guys who went deep into tournaments this summer they're given the extra rest, right? But that is Alexis Sanchez, that is Aaron Ramsey, that's Laurent Koscielny, it's Olivier Giroud. It's suddenly a lot of players.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. So it was maybe like probably not the names that people were hoping for, had their fingers crossed when they were doing the billing for this tournament. But I think like I saw an ESPN article that was talking about the players they ended up using marketing, and it was like Jack Wilshere, David Ospina, and Gideon Zelalem, which is maybe not the high caliber player that you're looking for.
Zelalem made sense. I was excited to see Zelalem just because I always am because of his US national team future. I think he came on in the 68th minute or
Something like that.
Didn't do anything wrong, didn't do anything right, necessarily, like, didn't do anything outstanding kind of thing.
I know what you meant.
And I think that's kind of gives a good flavour of this game, right? It wasn't a high-intensity game with a lot happening.
No, it was not. It was not. And you could see, I mean, first there were the kind of common problems with any All-Star game where if you throw a bunch of players that don't play together into one team and expect them to get a game and make it a good game, it's not going to happen. You're going to see issues with passing and completing passes and knowing what you're trying to do, and then also
familiarity, right?
Yeah, and then you're going to see defensive mistakes, which is how you have the first goal.
That's exactly what happened on the first goal, we think.
We think, yeah.
So it's roughly 10 minutes in. There's an Arsenal ball sort of out of midfield. We think it's Wilshere or Coquelin plays it. We don't know because ESPN was showing a replay of something else, and we haven't been able to track down full video of this. But it looks like Laurent Simon has dropped out of the back four, gone a little deep, allowed Joel Campbell to be onside running through. And it seems there's a miscommunication between Blake in goal and Simon defending. And Blake's not there fast enough. Simon tries to pull him back. And
I think the issue, from the way I saw it, is that the ball, it's a long ball, it's over the top, and Joel Campbell's in a foot race with Laurent Simon, which he's probably going to win, but Andre Blake
every single time.
But Andre Blake is off of his line and does well to be off his line quickly. The problem is that when he approaches the ball, it's right at the edge of the penalty area, and so he can't overcommit because then he's outside the box. If he handballs it, who knows what's going to happen. So he has to slow up a little bit and wait, and that's what happens. Is he slows up, Joel Campbell's then running through it full speed, so by the time Blake is able to get it, Joel Campbell's already beaten him to the ball. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily anything wrong with Blake or anything he did wrong. Maybe he could have made himself a little bit bigger. I think it's just that high line that then maybe Simon broke a little bit, and it just kind of doesn't work because people don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
And it was definitely a penalty, right? We've watched this a couple of times. Simon pulls him back, he gets an arm over the shoulder. I think once you get your arm, there should be like a plane, you know what I mean, like above your shoulder. Someone's arm goes above that and like grabs your pectoral and pulls you back. Then you're being pulled back.
Well, I think my general rule of thumb, because I think the people who were saying it shouldn't have been a penalty were arguing that like their legs got entangled while they're both running for the ball. Neither one of them was necessarily trying to make that happen, so it isn't necessarily a penalty. And my response to that would be, once you put that arm out, as you said, you know where the player is, and you know exactly where you are in relation to them, and then when you kind of step across them a little bit, as Simon did, and take those legs out, then you kind of know what you're doing.
The reason the legs are entangled is because you've held him back, right? If Simon didn't get the arm around and hold Joel Campbell back, like we said, he's always winning the foot race. Campbell would have accelerated away, and Simon couldn't have got the legs tangled even if he wanted to.
Yeah, it's a distinct possibility.
So, I mean, so obviously Campbell scores the penalty kick, and all that kind of illustrates the problem with being the All-Star team, right? That's one of the problems with the All-Star game. The All-Star team is never sort of familiar, organised, connected, and things break down.
And I don't know if we want to get into this here, but I would also say one of the other problems with the All-Star game, at least in this format, is that you become the second team. Like, you're not the primary, like the big team. It's not, look at the All-Stars.
You're not what they're there to see.
Exactly. People are there to see Arsenal or the other, last year Bayern Munich. Like that, I think that was last year at least. I can't remember.
Last year was Spurs.
It was, you're right. It was the year before, and that's when there was the incident between Guardiola and Porter. But so people get excited about that team, and you have half the stadium is fans of Arsenal or fans of Tottenham or fans of Bayern.
The one guy celebrate the winner real hard.
Yeah.
Way more than you should in like an all-star preseason friendly game for Arsenal.
Yeah. And I just think it just kind of it bummed me out a little bit, to be completely honest. It bummed me out, number one, because you had moments like Andrea Pirlo and David Villa starting the game, being subbed out in like the 32nd minute because they then had to catch a flight back to New York for their game Saturday. Mm-hmm. So then those guys obviously aren't taking it too seriously, and not that you should take an All-Star game too seriously, but it's just a very solid reminder of like, oh yeah, this is like 19th priority for a lot of these dudes.
We'll talk about maybe ways to fix it afterwards, because before that I want to talk about the problem with the star attraction, Arsenal, being in pre-season. Right? And the fact that we had, say, Bielik, this Polish centre-back, who's also in the Top Stock Show Scouting Network, scouted by Michael Russell. Haven't heard from either of our scouts about this game. I'm hoping those reports are still to come, because it only happened last night. Bielik essentially is trying to play out of the back and is unsuccessful, and his pass to Walcott is intercepted by Sasha Kleshton. Basically the pass is ambitious and off target, which is a bad combination.
Yeah.
So Kleshton can step in, take the ball forward. It ends with Didier Drogba scoring after, I think, 3 attempts. Right? It's blocked, and then a really clever finish where he uses the tip of his toe to he sees one hole in the goal, basically one area that doesn't have an Arsenal player in it, and he can poke it in to equalise.
Right. But sorry, go ahead. And then
I'm saying it underlines the problem with the All-Star game is that the visiting team, the star attraction, doesn't have its stars, is in pre-season, and therefore they're kind of sloppy.
Yeah. And so I would say, and I mean this not in a positive way, that it's the ideal game for a Thursday night. Because it's a game to be watched while you're at a bar, but you're not like Friday or Saturday drinking. You're like Thursday, like, you're having one after work. Oh, yeah, I'll watch this soccer game. It's not a game that's designed to draw you in and be exciting and be captivating the way some All-Star games can be in other leagues. It's a game that is kind of there as a, I guess, quote-unquote, celebration of the league. But when you're basically having your celebration of the league be the players that are in that league as second billing to guys who are on their preseason semi-vacation, semi-preseason training, it loses a little bit of that luster.
Agreed. And then they lose, right? Because Chuba Akpom is there to tap home. I think the ball is from the left-back, Monreal, but some great work from Chris Willock, who's a young English winger. I just wanted to get a little mention of him. We're going to add him to the TSS Scouting Network for someone to keep an eye on. But yeah, like, your All-Stars lose to Arsenal's reserves in pre-season. And I think right there, that flatness is everything that's wrong with an All-Star game in the US. And I think this is where I want to try, in some way, to think about fixing this. Like, first of all, I think we have to accept that because MLS is an American league, there sort of has to be an All-Star game. Yeah. Right? I mean, in the context of US sports.
Yeah. I think there does. I think it makes sense to do that, especially if you want to continue to try to spotlight your league. I think the problem that they've had in the past, this is just my speculation, is that when it's the NBA, when it's Major League Baseball or football, those are the best players in the world in that sport playing in that All-Star game.
Right.
In this MLS All-Star, like, there's some really great players, don't get me wrong, and there's some players that we're excited to see, would have been probably more exciting to see 5 or 6 years ago. And there's some names in there, but it's not...
Kaká's miscontrol and then horrible attempt to slide tackle and win the ball back comes to mind.
Yeah, but if you're doing an All-Star game of the Premier League, I'm going to want to watch that, or the Bundesliga, same thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that it takes away a little bit, and that's something that you have to try to rectify, because even doing like an East versus West sort of format, which is what they used to do, again, it still isn't as exciting.
Well, one reason that I would kind of like to see an East versus West is it would bring back the more casual elements, right? Because as I think of it, like the All-Star game for any other sport, like say basketball, it's a bit more casual and people can show off, right? Because it doesn't matter. But when it's MLS All-Stars, you're representing MLS, which is a league that sort of always has a point to prove, is always being denigrated, and you're playing against Arsenal. So you almost have to be on point a little bit and take it seriously, or there's a chance you get blown out and everybody talks about how MLS is terrible because they lost 4-0 to Arsenal, right? So the pressure is on in a way that doesn't let the players enjoy it and express themselves. And Kaká can't do rainbows. Instead, he's trying to do something else and loses the ball.
Well, I think the issue is you have to figure out what the league wants to get out of the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Because if it is supposed to just reward fans who are loyal, who have been watching, then maybe East versus West makes sense.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to market the league and promote it and get fresh eyes, then that's why you probably have to do the Bayern Munich, the Tottenham, the Arsenals.
And I get it, yeah.
But that's where I have two solutions.
You do. All right, well, let me just say, though, even though I would prefer an East versus West type thing, like an intra-MLS thing, I understand that it almost has to be an outside big name team coming in, because that sells tickets and it gets people to watch on TV. So I'm almost not proposing that as a solution. I'm just saying I prefer it this way, but I understand why it has to be this way. So we have to find a different fix.
Right. So I have two, and they're the two most common ones. It's not like I'm being revolutionary or anything.
This is why you're a commissioner's pick and not voted by the fans.
I see. You could do Americans versus rest of the world, where you have like your US 11 or US 22, I guess is the roster, versus the best players in MLS from other countries.
So this would be an intra-MLS thing?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you would just have a squad entirely composed of Americans versus that, so you still get the huge names.
Hasn't MLS done this before?
I believe they have, yes, before they switched to playing a big team. And then the other one that a lot of leagues have started doing, well, I say a lot, I think just two, and maybe NWSL, so three, is having captains. So you have the All-Star pool where like fans vote, you get 40 players or however many, 44 I guess it would be, but then you have two captains and they do a draft. So they just pick the players that they want on their team.
Yeah.
That I would enjoy as well.
See, I would enjoy both of these, but I still don't think it's possible because there has to be an Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Tottenham come in to make the game more commercially viable.
I suppose so. I think it's just that we know that they're never going to be... Because regardless of the situation, yes, this summer was after a major tournament, so you're still missing stars. But even in the past when bigger clubs have come, they're never playing their full starting 11.
True.
And the players that they are playing, if you have Wayne Rooney playing for Man United, he is not going 100%. Like, that's not something he's going to be doing. You might have a youngster doing it, but not the big name players.
I think, whatever the setup is, I think you hit on the key thing is that players are not going 100% because it's pre-season for the European team, and for the MLS team, it's not, there are no points at stake in the same sort of way. So is there a way that we can just make the All-Star game more exciting to watch? Like when you see other All-Star weekends, I guess, I think of the dunk contest and the three-point contest and the home run derby, I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that gets attention, not the actual game in some ways, right?
So, and that's where I think maybe that is the ideal solution, is to just kind of blow it all up completely. And I think that's something actually NHL, and I'm sure we have NHL fans out there who know this far better than I do, but I think that was the first league to do the captain draft, and now I think they're doing some like 3-on-3 based on your conference.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you kind of have to do to keep it interesting, is you keep just doing different stuff every year. So then next year it's like, wait, they're doing 8v8 and you can like add two players whenever you want, or you add I'm not saying this is what they should do, but like you add two more goals and it becomes some crazy gimmicky. Or even if you did like your individual fans, so say you're a DC United fans, all get together, they vote for three players and you send like the three best players and you do like 3v3 tournament, and which team wins the tournament is like the All-Star team tournament. Like you could do little variations in the structure to keep people interested.
What else have we got then? Because I'm thinking I love when we do practice and when we play pickup, I love to play 3-touch. Like to see, you still get the big name, like you get Bayern Munich come and they have to play 3-touch.
Oh, so you're just keeping it even on that level.
Yeah, but you just change the structure and the rules of the game for this special All-Star event to encourage the fun aspect of it, right? You take away the pressure of you playing against a big team, almost enforce fun, sort of like Monica and Friends. Enforce fun with rules at the party.
Yeah. Because I think
volleys are worth 2 goals.
At the end of the day, I think you're right, though, that you're not going to get either team to really go 100%, nor do I think that's necessary.
But you can make them show off and have fun.
That's the thing. You want it to be exciting.
2 points.
You don't want it to be a Thursday casual watching game. You want it to be something that's fun and exciting. So even like NBA Jam style, like maybe you have like the 3-point line where exactly, yes. But just even like you have like hot spots where if you shoot from 40 yards out, you make it that kind of old school, what everyone hated about American soccer, you bring that back as like a fun callback, maybe.
I can imagine there are people listening being like, no, we can't go back to that. People around the world will laugh at us and call us crazy. But I almost feel like MLS has reached a point where we can say, in your face, we're doing whatever we want. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we want to have hotspots for our All-Star game, you can't do it in league play, obviously. But if we want to have hotspots for our All-Star game, which no one else in the world understands, you do not get it, we are going to have hotspots. We're going to paint them on the field. They're going to be bright red.
Yeah.
And they're going to be sponsored by Doritos.
I have to say, though, and I know we've
talked... It'll be the Doritos hotspot.
Oh, almost certainly. And Mountain Dew. I think my buddy Matt once had the joke that if you plant Doritos in the ground and then pour Mountain Dew on them, you'll grow your own Shaun White, which I think is pretty phenomenal. But I do think, though, and I know we've gone on long, I do think, though, that if you're going to do some sort of novelty All-Star game, you can't then have a Bayern Munich come to town because that's too. Because then you're basically asking them to come play in the preseason. I don't think so. It would be too insane, and they would all just be like, "This is dumb. This is weird. I don't want to be a part of this." So I think it would have to still be then intra MLS if you want to go that route. That's my last feeling on the topic.
So it turns out we haven't fixed the All-Star Game.
Yeah, but luckily we're not the ones who are in charge of doing it, so that's okay. That's okay.
Speaking of MLS, Taylor, we have a sponsor on today's show.
We sure do.
It's a returning sponsor.
Yes, they've returned at SeatGeek. And we have some exciting news about SeatGeek, our sponsor for today. They are now the official ticketing partner of Major League Soccer. SeatGeek is working with the league and its teams to introduce a new ticket buying experience that will make it easier for you to buy, sell, share, and access tickets to MLS matches.
So let's put this to the test, Taylor.
Okay.
I have the SeatGeek app open over here. You can't see it. Tell me an upcoming MLS game. Don't make me search like to October or something because I can't scroll down that far. Tell me an upcoming MLS game that you would like to go to, and I will look at the SeatGeek ticket options.
I think the one I would most want to go to is the one that Andre Pirlo and David Villa had to flee the All-Star Game to make it back for. It's New York's NYCFC versus Colorado because it's two teams that I think before the season started, a lot of people, ourselves included, had some question marks. Definitely didn't think Colorado would be where they are. And right now, New York is top of the Eastern Conference. Colorado's second in the West. So I think I'd like to see those two play to see just how they managed to get there.
Okay, so I found it on the app. I'm going to click it. It tells you, once you search for Colorado at NYCFC, it shows you the cheapest ticket is $24.
There we go.
And then when you scroll through on the SeatGeek app, it shows you the prices of the ticket, where in the stadium, I guess it's Yankee Stadium, where in Yankee Stadium that seat will be. And also SeatGeek has that special green, yellow, red thing where green means this is a good price for this ticket. Yellow means okay. Red means...
Where did you get that banana at?
Yeah, red means maybe don't buy this ticket. Because SeatGeek essentially is aggregating all tickets that are available. SeatGeek gets you the best price and the best tickets if you look in the app.
And if you want to use that SeatGeek app, then our listeners can get a $20 rebate on tickets. Download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab, and click add promo code. Enter the promo code TSS.
I could have guessed that.
SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase.
So there you go. SeatGeek, thank you for sponsoring this show. And worth reminding people, they are the official ticketing partner of Major League Soccer.
They are. So download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today.
Looking ahead, Taylor.
Yes, sir.
Next week. It's a big week for the US women's national team. The Olympics starts. The group games are really crammed into a very short space of time. We're not going to preview it today. We're going to have a full preview of the first game on Monday's show. But I'm going to tell you the schedule. US Women's National Team plays against New Zealand on August 3rd, which is Wednesday, plays against France on August 6th, which is Saturday, and then plays against Colombia on August 9th, which is Tuesday.
There you go. I'm not helping you. You do it yourself.
Yeah, the look on your face said I'm not helping you.
Yep, pretty much.
It's a pretty tight schedule. It's also France and Colombia, challenging teams, France especially. New Zealand, maybe not one of the best teams, but will be a challenge, I think, in terms of hard work, if that makes sense. But we will have a much deeper and more detailed preview of that first game, US Women's National Team versus New Zealand at the Olympics on Monday's show.
This is the plan. But before we get to that, Mr. Grove, we've got some reports, specifically scouting reports.
So should we set up maybe what the Scouting Network is, just in case somebody doesn't know?
I think we should.
So we mentioned at the top of the show that our subscribers were the ones you should thank for helping us get to 5 days a week, Monday to Friday Total Soccer Show. What that means is that these people have gone to totalsoccershow.com/subscribed. /subscribe. They have subscribed, past tense. And that means that we assigned them a young player to scout. Now the scouting reports come in and we get the updates on the best young players in the world and what they are doing.
Alrighty, up first we've got a report from Jay Glenn who says that 19-year-old Ruben Neves has been named one of Porto's captains for the season. Hector Herrera is number 1, Ruben Neves number 2, Andre number 3.
I checked. Andre is a real player. That is his real name.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I feel like we've buried the lead there, though.
A 19-year-old being the captain of Porto?
No, my man Hector Herrera is captain of Porto.
Until he leaves and goes elsewhere. Like maybe Napoli. Who knows? Speaking of Napoli, linked heavily, I think maybe actually officially signing TSS Scouting Network member Arkadiusz Milik. Who I think is moving there to replace Gonzalo Higuain.
Well, they got all that Higuain money to spend, right?
They sure do.
I feel like Juve... I feel like Juve have already spent the Pogba money before they've received it.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Maybe overspent.
Maybe more on that possibility later on, because we've got more reports this time about an American.
Yeah, so from Will Cunningham. Hello, Will. Will has a report about Cameron Carter-Vickers, the young American centre-back that we've been keeping an eye on. CCV started Spurs' first pre-season friendly against Juventus. I believe that was an International Champions Cup game. Spurs lost 2-1, giving up both goals inside the first 15 minutes. Neither of the goals were CCV's fault, but both he and fellow young centre-back Dominic Ball looked a little out of their depth because they were playing against Juventus. But they eventually settled in, and CCV was one of only 3 Spurs players to play the full 90 minutes.
I think that's a good thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you never really know in preseason if it's good to play the full 90, if that's the coach looking at you, if that's the coach like, yeah, I don't really need to worry about you. You don't need rest.
Well, thinking of Spurs, isn't Vertonghen injured?
Oh, yeah. Ooh, interesting. All right.
might be some
CCV
minutes.
starts. We've established it. And maybe pulls a Ruben Neves and becomes captain.
He's already captain of the under-21s, right?
Beautiful.
17, so yeah.
Yeah, well, moving on, we've got a report from Andrew Samuels. Andrew Samuels.
I believe it's Drew Samuels.
Well, I'm going to go with Andre Drew Samuels. How about that? He saw 29 minutes of 17-year-old attacking midfielder / English Leo Messi, Marcus Edwards against Juventus. Mr. Grove, I know you're excited about that. He sent us a long email about strengths and weaknesses, great detail, but we only have time to summarize, which is that his strengths, this is Edwards, not Drew Samuels, close control and dribbling, speed and acceleration, attacking runs and aggression.
You don't know that those aren't also Drew Samuels' strengths.
I like to think that they're both. The Scoutie and the Scout have much in common.
They've merged.
Weaknesses for Marcus Edwards would be size and strength, decision-making, for example, too much dribbling.
And I remember reading Drew's email when it came in. He also said that Marcus Edwards was maybe guilty of playing his teammates into trouble, like trying the simple pass, as if he was making an example of, like, I'm doing the simple pass, but not doing it all that successfully, and putting guys like Wanyama under pressure.
It's like the 10-year-old philosophy of, I don't want to be the one to lose the ball, so I'm going to pass it to my teammate who's going to get rocked by 3 players, but I'm not the one who lost it.
And to be fair, he's not that far off 10 years old.
But
I'm still super excited. I want Big Sam's first England squad to be just Marcus Edwards' name 23 times.
Well, Mr. Grove,
I don't really want that, just to clarify.
Are you excited to learn that it seems that all the usuals are attempting to sign Brazilian forward Gabriel Jesus before the Olympics start? That's what Tyler Dunaway says. He says Gabriel is currently in advanced negotiations with Manchester City, but he has also been linked with Real Madrid, PSG, and Manchester United.
And to be clear, Gabriel Jesus? Gabriel
Probably
Jesus,
yeah.
Is not Gabriel Barbosa.
It's Brazilian, so it's probably Gabriel Jesus.
All right, so he's not Barbosa, the other
not.
Gabigol. We have another Gabigol potentially on the horizon here with Gabriel Jesus.
Also, I'm the one who wrote that quick synopsis, and I really now am tempted, or wish I had gone back and said Real Madrid, PSG, Manchester United, and Wolves.
Is he represented by George Mendes?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Up next, we have a report from Alexander Barone about 17-year-old Monaco striker Kylian Mbappé. Alexander says the 2016 Euro Under-19 Championships went well for France, who won it, and also for Mbappé, who dominated it, scoring 5 goals. Not a bad tournament for the youngster.
Is that really how you pronounce his name?
I want it to be. It's probably not, is it?
Well, if it is, we're officially calling him Hansen from now on. That's how this is going to be.
It's probably Mbappé. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Mbappé is way more fantasy.
Yes, and I hear Mbappé is also better when performed acoustically. It's a topical reference about Hansen. You're welcome. Robert Greppel emails to say that 18-year-old attacking midfielder Ovi Ejaria, I'm going to say it, that's how you pronounce it? Although he's
not Spanish, no.
He's Nigerian and English. So
born in England, by the way.
Ejaria, then, is what I'm going to say, has played in all 4 of Liverpool's preseason matches, and it's being reported that he will be offered his first professional contract in the near future. Ejaria, see, there we go again, spent 9 years in the Arsenal Academy, but jumped ship to sign for Liverpool in 2014.
I also know there has been sort of as part of Liverpool's pre-season game with Chelsea, I believe, again in the International Champions Cup, someone made a highlight video of Ejaria's skills in that game. Haven't had time to watch it except for the one sort of backheel through ball that he played for Firmino to score a goal that was offside. A little glimpse of the future there.
Are you hoping that Big Sam has a word?
Maybe gets him away from the Nigerian national team. Hasn't he been playing for we looked into this a little bit, right? He's been playing for the Nigerian youth teams.
I believe so.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
It's never too late for now. Final report, Mr. Grove? is not up next because we have two more. Excuse me.
Ryan Linduff. Ryan Linduff subscribed and requested a Liverpool player also. He got Sergi Canos and has since been spending his time getting Google alerts about the youngster leaving Anfield. This is the danger, right? When you ask for a player from a specific team, especially a talented young player, we can't guarantee that he stays there, right?
Yes.
He could very well move on. Well, it's finally happened, says Ryan Linduff. Sergi Canos joined Norwich on a 4-year deal for a rumoured £4.5 million. He'll be managed by Alex Neil.
Hooray!
Norwich are hoping he will be a replacement for Nathan Redmond, meaning that he'll likely get some playing time this season.
Yeah. I did actually confirm with Ryan that he wanted to continue to scout young Sergi, and he said yes, he's in.
Excellent.
So,
well,
yes.
We'll probably get to see more of him then.
I would say so. Final report comes from John C. Fernandez about... why do I get the hard ones to pronounce? I'm going to say Borja Mayoral. Just signed a year-long deal with VfL Wolfsburg and will likely back up Bas Dost and Max Kruse this season, provided they stay at the club. Dost has been linked with Southampton and Kruse less reliably with clubs in Turkey. So there could be some space for the young Spanish/Real Madrid forward.
And there you go. Those are your Total Soccer Show scouting reports. I hope you feel updated about the future of soccer. If you would like to join the TSS Scouting Network, the website is totalsoccershow.com/subscribe. Pick a monthly subscription level and we will send you a young player to keep an eye on. If you have done so and you are sick of waiting for your player, we are on it. Part of our Monday to Friday thing is that we have more time to do essentially TSS admin, which is picking out people's scouts. Send us an email with the subject line Itchy Feet. Let us know that you are waiting. We will get back to you ASAP with your player to scout.
Fun note, maybe make sure you have actually subscribed before you send the Itchy Feet email.
Do you want to explain the backstory?
We've had multiple people email with Itchy Feet subject line saying, like, I want a young player. And then I start to research and I'm like, wait a minute, your name is not in our PayPal archives. And that's because it's not just that you can just email in and get a scout. It is an incentivized program.
I understand where the confusion comes from. It's that when you listen to a show on iTunes, for example, when you want to subscribe to that show, you press subscribe. Yeah. Right? But there's a very different subscription thing where you support the Total Soccer Show.
There it is. Yeah. Stop confusing people, Mr. Grove. Stop confusing people.
Why is this my fault?
Yeah, it's got to be somebody's fault.
Speaking of confusing people, I remember when we did a very short segment on the US women's national team, just before we took our break, I basically implied or said that Ali Krieger would be the starting right back for the US women's team. We received several very polite emails.
Several dozen.
I'd say about a dozen, actually, letting me know in no uncertain terms that more than likely Kelly O'Hara will be the starting right back. There was one email which we thought was impolite, but it was a miscommunication. That was also polite, and that has been resolved.
How has no one created a sarcasm font yet? Because everyone says it's impossible to read and write sarcasm properly on the internet. There really should be some third, like not italicized, not bold. Yeah. You need something that like conveys eye rolling.
It should be an emoji, right?
Right? Yeah. Like you should put it like the upside down question mark, right side up question mark. You need that. You need the eye roll emoji at the beginning and end of a sentence. That's how you know that it's sarcasm. Done.
And hello to Chem if you're listening. That is all for today's Total Soccer Show, except to say that we will be back on Monday. We will be previewing the US Women's National Team game against New Zealand. We'll also have all kinds of other stuff on that show, including listener questions. We have an archive of questions that we want to get to answer. We are always looking for more. If you email contact@totalsoccershow.com, send us your question. If we like it, or if it's something like an interesting topic, we will answer it on the show. If you are a $10 a month subscriber, we will guarantee to answer it on the show.
Perfect. Lovely. Well done.
All that remains to say is Taylor Rockwell, Commissioner's pick for the Podcast All-Stars. Thank you.
I think first alternate, but sure.
For taking the time to talk to me today.
Daryl Grove, who didn't make the All-Star team, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Like Landon Donovan, I was managing the under-20 All-Stars.
I've also, it's been long enough.
The homegrown All-Stars.
It's been long enough in the recording that I forgot that I began this by saying that you were actually the Commissioner's first pick and I was the alternate. So there's that. So it's
definitely time to finish.
So I burned myself twice, is basically what happened.
Listeners, thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to talking to you again on Monday. Taylor and I are off to prepare our research for Richmond Kickers versus New York Red Bulls 2. You nearly forgot, right? That's the game that we're doing.
Oh, no, I did not.
You didn't?
I was just looking out the window to see what the weather is going to be like, because it's supposed to be thunderstorms all day.
But we will be doing the USL commentary for Kickers versus New York Red Bulls 2 on Saturday. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to follow along via the USL website. Hopefully, Derek Etienne, Tyler Adams, some big-name players will be on that New York Red Bulls 2 team.
Inshallah, in the Turkish sense.
All right, Taylor, listeners, thank you to everybody. It is goodbye from us. We will talk to you again on Monday.